This is a controversy. I don't even know if this is a peeve. This is a straight on controversy.
Okay. Well, we're going to clip it and comment if you think it's controversial.
So this one came up naturally. I don't want to say I like crib this, but I know this has come up on like other probably social media things. I like heard it brought up again on the radio after I had been harping on it for like 2 years running and on some first dates with people. This is why they never went to second dates probably. The controversy is audiobooks.
Okay.
Is it reading a book? And so I want to say that I think I'm rational and objective and take like a solid middle ground, but I do believe there is a right and a wrong answer based on the wording. Audiobooks, if you listen to an audiobook, you have experienced the book. You have every bit as right to claim that like, yep, I did this book. I know this story. I experienced it. I completed it. But using the word reading, you did not read anything. And the reason I was super passionate about I was only really passionate about it because I used to work at a learning center that was like reading intervention for students. And every month, whatever month Reading Awareness Month is, I think it's March or April or something.
Is it?
Something like that, where you like a lot of schools would do like reading challenges and stuff like that. We would always do like a reading challenge, and the students would have to, report how many.
I'm looking it up. Keep going. Yeah.
How many pages they read, and we tried to set like a goal of like how many pages you read, and we'll get like a little party. And if the students, because these students have a hard time reading, if like their parents read to them, if they listened to a book, I wasn't gonna call them out, but I was like, we're adults. Sometimes we would do teachers versus students, or see how teachers would do against each other. And I was like, for a place that really emphasizes the written word, being able to read, sound out words, see a word and use like your phonemic awareness and knowing some of the English rules to like let our staff be like, yeah, I read 500 pages last night because they listened to an audiobook of Game of Thrones. I was like, that shouldn't count.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be counting audiobooks as reading for a reading challenge because that is not what the word means. I know a lot of people, nobody agreed with me. Everybody thought I was being a Scrooge or a Grouch. They're like, come on, what about this? What about that? And I started doing like stupid arguments like, is watching a YouTube video reading? Is listening to music reading a song?
Yeah.
And it's more of like I have a very, I guess the overall pet peeve this is attributed to is my pet peeve for like respecting the nuance of language and not like using words incorrectly, because it eventually ruins all value to the word. If every time I told a story or said something, you said, that's amazing, and only said that, oh, dude, wrestling, that's amazing. Dude, you did stand-up comedy? Amazing. Dude, you worked at a learning center? That's amazing. Dude, traffic was bad? That's amazing. We'd start being like, there's no nuance there. How do I know what he means? What actually is amazing anymore if you're using that word incorrectly? And so my pet peeve is people that use words incorrectly where I think it starts ruining and devaluing the word. So when it comes to audiobooks, is it reading? Not by definition, is my argument. You are not reading a book.
That's fantastic. I love that take. And what I would say about it, I think you laid it out much better than I could. But what I would say...
Thought about it a lot.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's perfect. So my take would be like, okay, so physically reading, opening a book, looking at every single word, processing it in your brain, I think there's studies that show that is really good, especially as you approach old age, because you're using your brain. I would argue, or I'm sure there's studies out there that show like audiobooks are not quite doing the same thing. I don't think they're quite as good for your brain because it's like you're being fed the information as opposed to feeding yourself the information.
Yeah.
Like you are doing the work of like transcribing, like you are solving the puzzle as opposed to somebody like putting the pieces in place for you.
One's a bit more active.
That's
you're not going to get to another page or turn a page unless you're actually processing it. But if you hit play on that audiobook, you might have a phone call come in and not listen to a little bit or something, and it's gone pages past, and you're like, oh, I probably didn't miss anything.
Right.
To be fair, there are definitely times where I read and I'm just spaced out, and I get to the end of a page or a paragraph, I go, what was I? Why was
Yeah.
I thinking about that?
Mhm.
And I got to go back, or sometimes I don't. But yeah, I get a lot of the arguments for audiobooks is that like it's people gatekeeping reading and saying like I didn't read a book. I'm not saying you didn't finish a book. I'm
Right.
not saying you didn't experience this book. I'm not writing. If you listened to all the Harry Potter audiobooks and I read them all, we could both say, yeah, I know the Harry Potter books. I experienced all the Harry Potter books. But I would take issue with you saying you read them.
Yeah.
Specifically that verb.
We could take the same test and get the same score. Where I do think audiobooks probably have an advantage. There are some like learning disabilities like a
Yes.
dyslexia.
Yes.
Or even probably an ADHD, because I've spoken with people who say that the audiobook has like grown in terms of like production value.
Mm.
So the audiobook has music, it has different people reading different characters, so it's almost like live animation, and it helps them to retain the information. If that's your position, I'm like, go for it. But I agree with you that if you don't have any learning deficiencies and you're choosing audiobook over the actual reading, yeah, there's something about it that I can't quite put my finger on. But you said like it's active, like there's something intangible that you're not gaining by actually physically reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm with you. That was a lot of the arguments, especially when I heard on the radio, there were people calling in like, I have a kid that can't read, and so we listen to audiobooks and stuff like that. And I'm not going to walk up to him and be like, you didn't do a book, you didn't read a book. But like, if he was like, I read so many pages, I can be like, well, let's say you listen to so many minutes of a book.
Yeah.
Because let's use words accurately.
Mm-hmm.
If this kid walked into a job interview, and they're like, "What's your favorite book?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've read so many books," and he never put it on his resume that like he can't really read and has like dyslexia. And they give him a job where he has to read things. Like you're misrepresenting and it. It's fine, but it may put you in a situation where you're like an ass later on.